Good morning, friends. April here with Medwell Health and Wellness. I'm so excited. It's Thursday, one of Emily and I's favorite day of the week. We have been, since the beginning of the year, we've been talking about cannabis, wellness, and you, and we've had wonderful guests along the way talking about medical cannabis and really using it for your best self. And today we have Ian Williamson from Resinate. He's the director of laboratory operations. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
And of course, we have Emily, our director of community outreach. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
Awesome. All right, so friends, just some housekeeping before we get started. We would love to know that you're here. We're streaming to Facebook as well as YouTube, as well as the medwellhealth.net website. Drop a comment and tell us you're here and where you're from. Also, feel free to leave questions along the way because we will absolutely get to them before the end of our stream. And let's see, if you are catching the replay, no worries because you can leave a comment and we will absolutely get back to you. So kind of just to get started, friends, today's topic is about the edible dilemma. And is it really a dilemma? Probably not, but we want to talk a little bit about the why and when they're a good choice for your wellness. And, I think one of the things is that as we've gone through this series, we've talked about strains, we've talked about different types of products. We've talked about a lot of different things, but today the concentration is on the different types of edibles. But I think one of the things that you're going to love as we were talking in the green room with Ian is he's a scientist. So he has this wonderful wealth of knowledge to share with us about kind of the intricacies of how edibles are made. And he was mentioning one of his colleagues and talking a little bit about how they came to Resonate. And it was interesting because I had never heard of this process before. So what I love the most about these educational lives on Thursdays is I walk away with so much more knowledge than before I started. Would you agree, Emily?
Absolutely.
All right. So to get us kicked off, let's do some kind of formal, informal introductions. Emily, tell a little bit about yourself and your role at Medwell.
Of course, April. So my name is Emily Waxman, and I am the community outreach director over here at Medwell Health and Wellness. So my role over here is to be able to go out into the community and be able to answer all sorts of questions and explain the process of coming into the medical program here in Massachusetts and being able to tell people the process and the ease of it and why someone would choose Medwell. And it is just an absolute pleasure to be able to go to places like Resinate over in Worcester, where they have their adult use program as well as their medical program. They have a beautiful spot in Northampton for all their adult use folks. And just the team over there is just phenomenal. And it is just an absolute pleasure to be able to work with them. And I am really, when you mentioned, April, about being excited about this week, I have to tell you, I was really extra excited because one, I really was so excited to talk to Ian, but also really excited about this topic too. So it is always wonderful to be able to take something away from these unscripted and be able to mention this when I'm out and about in the community as well and take some of that knowledge with me, because that's really what it's all about here over at Medwell Health and Wellness. So I will now lend it over to our friend Ian so he can explain his role and introduce himself.
Yes. So as you can see, my name's Ian Williamson. I'm the director of laboratory operations here at Resinate. Resinate in Douglas is our production facility where we have a full cultivation department, and that cultivation material, lab mat, and really flower of all kinds comes through the lab. We extract that material and we'll extract it into crude and live resin products in some cases. We'll also use some solventless methods. And then it's our distillate or our live resin that ends up being infused into the edibles that are made in the kitchen. We are vertically integrated, so we do have two dispensaries, one in Northampton and one here in the Worcester area. And so we are, positioned to put out the best products that we can into the Commonwealth and all the consumers that are there.
Awesome. So Ian, let's one of the things our audience doesn't know is a little bit about your background. So Emily and I were bowing to you because you are a science teacher by trade.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, actually. So for 15 years prior to coming to Resonate, I was a science teacher in a few districts in the Commonwealth. I taught chemistry mainly, but I also taught biology, astronomy, environmental science. In education, you're a teacher of everything. Science is science as far as they're concerned. So that was my experience prior to. A good friend of mine, Peter DeCaro, was actually getting this startup going, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love for you to come and run our lab." And so it was an impossible thing to say no to at the time. So I gave it a shot, and here I am. I've learned so much in the last 2.5 years, you wouldn't believe.
Sure.
And so here I am putting that knowledge into play.
But I guess I want to add that it was juniors and seniors of high schoolers for science.
Yeah.
So that being said, your job must be a walk in the park now, because
definitely not. I'll just tell you.
No.
Obviously, we all know that we're all somewhat aware because we've been in the school systems of the stresses that exist for teachers and educators, but it's a different kind of stress in the private sector. It's just that there are different pressures. And you have to deal with them in similar ways. You know what I mean? Like managing a staff, it's very similar to managing a classroom. And so some of the things can be similar, but yeah, it's the stress level is about the same.
I was just kidding. I have no doubt. I just, like Emily was saying, we have teenagers, and if they're watching, which they're not because they're completely embarrassed that we're live, right? All right. So let's get this conversation started about edibles. So, I actually am a huge edible fan myself in terms of helping with my anxiety. And I think one of the things is that I'd love to just start the conversation on what are edibles and, the different types of edibles that are available to a medicinal patient.
Okay. So there are a number of different types of edibles, because remember, almost any food can be infused. There are some, though, like when they're water-based, for example, you have to emulsify the oils first because they won't mix. And so certain products like chocolate, though, they're already kind of ready to be mixed because they have that, they have that consistency of the oil. So it's important to realize that the way you make edibles isn't necessarily always just we throw these two things together and that's what they are. Here at Resinate, we have Smokies gummies. So we've partnered with a company from out west, and they gave us basically their whole process, everything to make their particular gummies. We have 10 different flavors. All of those flavors can be sour and sweet. We have medical varieties of up to 25 milligrams per piece, and then we have our rec varieties that are 5. One of the challenges to making sure that you're doing the right thing with producing edibles is really to make sure that they're dosed correctly. To make sure that it really is a very simple mathematical equation with some multiplication and division, but if the production end doesn't produce exactly what they plan to, well, then you end up having being off in your targeted milligrams per piece, and so that's an issue that can come up. But it's really all about production. Like I said, the math doesn't lie on that. You're pretty sure that you're going to get to 5 milligrams. One thing that we've been doing is trying to shoot a little bit above that to like 5.1, just to make sure that they're right at or above that 5 milligram. So a list of the different types of edibles like that we do here. So we also have our chocolate. Our chocolate edibles we actually infuse with live resin. The reason that we do that is because the live resin has more of the compounds like terpenes, et cetera, that are actually responsible for the entourage effect, which would be getting the full experience from the strain that you're infusing with. And so that we're doing that with chocolates now. It's possible we could do that with our other products in the future.
Well, and I guess when you talk about edibles, friends, as Ian mentioned, it can be infused into any type of food. So typically in like a medical dispensary, you might find brownies, you might find cookies. Like in Connecticut, it's very different than it is in Massachusetts. Here in Connecticut, you can't get chocolate, you can't get gummies. So it's very interesting. The different types, tinctures can be. There's also edibles can be considered a capsule too, right?
Yes, you can actually make, we can make capsules actually even with our automated system that we use to fill carts. But capsules absolutely can be made. Those are things that we're R&Ding right now.
Awesome. And so when you kind of talk about so as I mentioned, I'm an edible user. I believe Emily is too.
Yes, I am as well. Yep.
And you're talking about kind of patient care. There's, I know everybody has their own personal, it's a personal journey of what product is good for them for their wellness. But do you typically see certain patients that are a better fit for edibles than others when you kind of look at the spectrum between tinctures, capsules, chocolate, gummies, cookies, all those different things? Do you find that there's patients that are a better fit?
Well, it definitely, the thing about edibles, and this will probably come up in a couple of ways as we talk about this. It's very specific to the person, and so how people are going to be affected by edibles is very unique to their biological system. But I found that edibles in general are best for anyone who doesn't wish to partake in the smoking or vaping of cannabis products. They're also good for people who prefer a longer period of effect after consumption. And they're very useful to those of us who do consume in other ways, but smoking or vaping will not be an option, wherever you're going. And so the different types of edibles, I think most people would be best fit for gummies, for gummies, a chocolate. You're eating something that you would normally eat. And as long as you're, being careful about your consumption, that's what most people would need. You see the tinctures, I think, oftentimes with maybe more specific health issues. But I've really never known anyone who used a lot of tincture. It's just an option that's out there from my perspective.
All right. When we talk about infusion, obviously there's different strains. So kind of, what types of different products are found in edibles in terms of strains? I know hybrid, indica, sativa, and there's also CBD. When you get the label on an edible, and we can that will be the second part of the question, because I do want to talk about the labeling, because I think sometimes it's misunderstood. But let's start with strains.
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about how the infusion process works. Most often edibles are infused with distillate. Distillate's a flavorless concentrate with a high concentration of cannabinoids and no terpenes. The purpose of infusing with distillate is really to not taint the flavor of the edible with the flavor of cannabis. Our distillate is often run from indica or sativa crude oil blends. Indicas tend to be more of a body high, and they can lead to more of that couch lock experience, while sativas they tend to be more uplifting with less of that body high effect. And those of you who have tried sativas, there's a little bit more of the mind racing. So if you have some anxiety, perhaps those aren't the direction you necessarily want to go. And if you're trying to alleviate that issue anyway. Here at Resinate, we might use a straw nana lemon, which is one of our signature strains, as our sativa. And then we probably use something like a Sunday Sunset as our indica dominant distillate for infusing. But what's new to the market, or relatively new, is the idea of using what is called live resin from these particular strains to infuse. And we're doing that with chocolates now. So we infuse chocolates with our straw nana lemon live resin. And the difference between live resin and crude that we get out of the extractor is that the live resin comes from a fresh frozen batch. So we here in the lab actually will run over to cultivation, and we'll actually do our own little harvest before the main harvest. And we'll get all of that material into the freezer. And then within a few days, we will run that into what is called live resin. Now, what makes it special is that because we get it so early, all of that the terpenes haven't had a chance to dissipate and leave the product. When you have a 9 or 10 day dry cure period, you'll lose some of those terpenes. So live resin gives you as close to the flower and as close to the strain that you're looking for as you can get. And so using live resin, like I said, it's really just to bring in the entourage effect into our edibles, so that there are more of those compounds and it's not just distillate and the cannabinoids.
Got it.
It's fascinating. Very interesting.
Kind of talking about labeling, I think one of the things that was really important to understand, and I'm not sure that it's clear to everybody, and I know and we'll talk a little bit about patient care, but if I get gummies and it says that they are 50 milligrams is kind of the top number, but then really, and it could be a little bit different, so I'm going to apologize because I'm in Connecticut, so I know I'm assuming labeling is the same, but and then it goes through kind of how much THC, it has cannabinoids, it has what if it's a hybrid, what type it is, but then it also goes on to tell me that it's per cookie or it's divided between per whatever it is. So I think so now I'm very cautious. So I take a piece at a time, and I totally kind of go that very slow pace and be like, okay, maybe I'll take a little bit more, because if I took a whole cookie or I would be probably on the floor. I'd be alarmed.
And I think that we've all kind of run into that with edibles. Yes. And if that first time you overdo it, believe me, you're looking to not overdo it again at the very least. But for those of you who are first timers, it is really important that you do what is called microdosing to start. And what that would be is, let's say that you bought some of our 5 milligram gummy packs of Smokies, and this is the first time you're going to do it. I would say you go ahead and cut that 5 milligram in half and take that and wait a good solid 2 hours. I say 2 hours. You could probably wait less to get the full effect, but the point is what you don't want to do is eat a bunch of them, and then there's no coming back for a good long time, and you're going to be uncomfortable for a while because you can kind of be overwhelmed if you take too much. I do recall taking one time a medical dose in a caramel. I had no idea how much was in it, and I was like, I almost had a panic attack. I was like, I can't breathe. I got to open the window. You know what I mean? It's like, so you really have to be careful with edibles. And like I said, everyone's different. So the microdose method, take a half of a piece, wait, and then you'll get an idea for what you're comfortable with that particular product. Remember, every product might be a little different. And so, like I said, those of you first timers, just be real careful don't ruin the experience for yourself. Don't take 5 of them and say, oh, I love these gummies. They taste so great.
It's not like taking M&Ms from the package.
No.
Ian, I've been at quite a few different table events throughout my time, and I get to listen in to some of the questions that patients will ask the folks behind the counter. And one question I hear quite often is if they should be taking their edibles on an empty stomach. Is that something that matters or not? Or do you think that there's any significance to the edible working at all any better, or doesn't matter?
Yeah, so really, it does matter.
Okay.
And it's about really how quickly you can make it bioavailable. That's a phrase that's used with edibles. And so if you eat a full meal and then you have your gummy, you're going to have a longer onset. It'll be slower. It'll come on, in a way that's probably more amenable to most people. If you eat it on an empty stomach, it'll take effect quicker. You know what I mean? So if you want a faster effect, then you'd probably want to do that on an empty stomach. But I think as a general rule with any kind of medication, you want to probably, eat something and then take it. It's just, I think that's just good practice in general for consuming something like this.
Agreed. Great advice.
Well, and one of the things that you said earlier is that edibles have a longer lasting effect, right? So, and I'm sure that varies per person, and it probably also varies whether you have an empty stomach or a full stomach, how long it's going to last.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Nope. So kind of when you start talking, so I loved you talking about microdosing, because I think that's a term that is not as commonly mentioned. I don't even think we've had a discussion on that, Emily, have we, on our
I don't
show?
think so.
No. So would you mind just going back to that and just explaining microdosing one more time, just so this way I can make sure that it's very clear to our audience of what that is.
Sure. So microdosing really is taking just a couple of milligrams or less even. Do you know what I mean? It's something that folks do where they want some of those therapeutic effects, but they don't want it to be overwhelming. Like they're going off to work, but they have some pain that they're dealing with or some anxiety. Microdosing is a very effective way to go about your business and be able to, to consume at the same time. Like the last thing you want to do is take too much of an edible and then go to work, and then you're a little maybe uncomfortable and you're not in your right space to do whatever your job is. So microdosing is just that what is now a common term of just keeping a low amount in your system, so that you're getting the therapeutic effects, but you're not going to be overwhelmed by it.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the patient experience at Resinate. So if, one of the things if I were to come in as a patient and it was my first time coming into Resinate, is it something where I would have a consultation? Is there a certain role of a person that I would speak to? Kind of, how does that process work as I'm trying to figure out, what product to get? At Medwell, we do our best to educate our patients before they get there. But of course, that initial opening the door of the dispensary, you're like, ooh, it can be a little bit like you can feel a little anxiety and nervous. So what can people expect?
Well, certainly. And listen, that's one thing that I've noticed, at least that I've noticed, and this is just with my family and my friends, that folks who are in the older generation can sometimes be a little less comfortable about going into dispensaries. Like my mother won't even go. I have to buy her anything that she needs to get. And part of that is, you go in there and usually it's a bunch of young people at the counter. And so, that might make people feel a little uncomfortable. I can tell you though, that here at Resinate in Northampton and Worcester, that our bud tenders are there to make you feel comfortable. And we give out some pretty good updates here from the production side so that they're pretty aware of what products we're putting out and what use there would be for them. And so what the experience they would get, they'll come in, come in with just an idea of here's the health issue I'm trying to work with. Here is the, and then they will do a great job of guiding you to a product that would be a good match. On a personal level, I know exactly what I'm getting when I go to the store. So, I don't tend to use these, these wonderful things that we offer here at Resinate. But believe me, if you go to our store, you will get a customer, some very, very great customer service from our people, and they will help guide you to what it is you're looking for.
I can certainly attest to that too, Ian. I've watched many patients come in, and the folks behind the counter are more than willing to sit with them for as long as they need to explain each and every product and make those recommendations. So certainly it is worth the trip to Resinate, not only for the wonderful team that they have there, but it is a phenomenal selection of items that you can choose over there that you might not find at some of the other dispensaries. So certainly it is worth the trip for sure.
Awesome. And so do you offer any patient discounts?
Yes, actually, we actually do. If you visit Resinate within 30 days of receiving your first-time patient certification or getting your recertification, you'll receive a discount valid for $50 off 4 purchases of $100 or more. Obviously not transferable, can only be used once per day, as we do have limits in terms of, as far as what the CCC will allow us to do in terms of giving discounts. But that's one that really is a helpful one for folks just getting their card or recertifying.
So for many folks, the card will end up paying for itself in no time, because you get your certification, head over to Resinate and take advantage of all these amazing discounts, and you've already paid yourself back for that cert. So certainly worth.
In your first 4 purchases, you paid for your card and then some.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's fantastic.
Excuse me. So Ian, thank you so much for all of that knowledge of kind of the edibles, the behind the scenes, and we appreciate you and the Resinate team being part of our a great partner. Emily and I always enjoy having conversations with you guys and working together. So thank you.
It was absolutely my pleasure, guys. I really enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian.
All right, friends. So you can find I actually am going to drop it again in the chat here, but you can go to iResinate.com to learn all about their locations as well as products that they offer. They also have some great information to kind of walking you through that experience of the patient discounts as well. If you are looking for questions on how to get your medical cannabis certification, please drop by medwellhealth.net. We have offices throughout Massachusetts as well as do telehealth. But if you just have a question, call us, email us, drop us a line on social media. We're here to help you and make sure that you have all the information you need to make educated decisions and feeling your best self and living pain-free. So we look forward to actually next week, we have a break to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So break out your green and have a great St. Patrick's Day. And we'll be back in 2 weeks from today at 10 a.m. And thank you again, Ian. Thank you, Emily, for your time today. I always enjoy, it's my favorite day of the week. So everyone have a great day. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.